afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today for the Lunch and Learn session. Today we're going to be looking at some of the new features, functionalities which are being released in Wave 2. Just to recap, there's two major Wave releases every year, autumn, upcoming, and in the spring. So similar to earlier this year, I will now hand over to my colleagues Chris Tilley and Shilin Kamini, who will take you through some elements of supply chain, commerce, planning improvements, and also look at what's new in CE functionality. There's a lot to get through, so I'll hand over right now. Thank you very much.
Hello all. Hi, yes, it's Chris Tilley speaking now. I'm an enterprise architect with HSO. I joined in around 2015, and I've got a kind of architecture history around AX since about 2007, 2008, I think now. And I've been working in the enterprise architecture role for a few years, and part of my role is, keeping aware of what's coming down the track as far as Dynamics and Azure and Power Platform updates go. So the updates are twice yearly, if you weren't already aware. And they are quite hefty, as you can see from the shot on the right there. There's a lot in there. So Shilin and I usually pick a few of our favorites because we can't talk to you for 8 hours as much as we'd like. So I'll be talking a little bit about some of the supply chain, particularly the planning that I liked, and Shilin will introduce himself later on when he talks about some of the customer engagement bits. So the first area I wanted to pull out is planning, and particularly around the planning optimization service. So the planning optimization service is a replacement for the master DMRP service. So the benefits of planning optimization, if you weren't already aware, is it's a microservice outside of finance and operations, much better performance, in-memory processing, minimizes the impact on other processes. Previously, MRP could really impact your system performance, and planning optimization actually sits on a separate service, so it doesn't impact, and it means you can kind of run it several times during the day. That's been around a while, but demand-driven material requirements planning has been brought in the last couple of releases and been enhanced in this release. So it's included with the planning optimization, and it's additive. It's not replacing any functionality. So what DDMRP is a kind of industry standard thing, come from that book there on the right, which you can grab off your favorite book site. So it combines aspects of material requirements planning, some distribution requirements planning, but with more of an emphasis on pull, with visibility of the supply and the demand found in some of the lean approaches, and really trying to reduce the variability in the supply and allow you to get your products out to your customers as quickly as possible. Some of the new elements are there's a decoupled lead time page, which basically we'll talk about what decoupled lead times mean in a second. But it just allows you to see your product and the manufacture of those products in a bit more detail, and allows you to talk about, see that functionality, providing data so you can estimate how much of a given product will be needed in the future, kind of using your average daily usage, which are sort of forward and blended with current current demand requirements. And that's kind of useful for forecasting, introducing a new product or something like that. So let's talk a little bit about what DDMRP actually does. So there's kind of 5 elements to it, really, as you can see. The first 3 elements really define the initial and the configuration of your DDMRP model, and it will evolve as you go through. And the final 2 elements are the day-to-day kind of execution, operation of the method. And DDMRP is usually where you start if you're transforming to a sort of a more demand-driven adaptive enterprise, rather than kind of relying on safety stocks and the lead times and things in your products. So what do we have here? We've got the inventory positioning. So we'll talk about what decoupling points are in a second, but it really allows you to calculate and identify what your decoupled lead times are for sort of purchased and distributed and actually manufactured items. The buffer profiles and levels, these allow you to group your items into managed families, independently managed families with different settings for impact. So the buffers and the zone values, they're calculated using a combination of the dynamic buffer adjustments to basically plan or anticipate events that might affect how you can supply. And I'll go through an example later, so this makes a bit more sense. You can dynamically adjust how you set these buffers based on what's happening in the market or what's happening in your operations or things you know are coming, maybe even weather events or problems with your supply. And then the demand-driven planning allows the system to actually do the planning for you, perform what they call the net flow equation. Includes things like qualifying sales order demand, what's due today, what's past due, spikes in your demand, and then there's a visual bit at the end, so you can see what's happening, how your production is going, and display alerts on buffer status for on-hand positions, so you know where you are. But that's probably a little bit hard to swallow. So if we go through an example here, this is obviously the bill of materials of a pillow. So what we want to do first is choose the decoupling points. So what does that mean? We're going to consider a few things like the external variability of our supply. What's our lead times? How likely are we to get the things we're asking for on time? And then inventory leverage and flexibility. For example, on this foam billet, is that used for other things? Is it just using this pillow, or is it lots of things that we manufacture, such bits of sofas, things like that? Are there any critical operation protections? So you might find that you've only got one machine that makes the thread, something like that. So it's a critical operation. If that machine goes down, you don't have any other options. So you may decide to isolate that as a decoupling point. What's your customer tolerance time? Do customers expect within 2 days, within 6 weeks? That has to factor in how you're going to split up your BOMs, your bill of materials, to best keep the stock in availability and make sure you can manufacture or supply your products. And then how far ahead are you looking at? What's your sales order visibility? Is it a week ahead? Is it 6 weeks ahead? Is it a year ahead? And then kind of what your potential lead times are. So just building this up a bit. So taking this example, we might put the first decoupling point here. I've got the little icon over here at the foam billets for, it may be difficult to source the materials that are used. So I honestly don't know what polyol is. I know what catalyst is and the oil, but these might be hard to get hold of. The availability could be volatile. It could be very dependent on things like the Suez Canal. So that's kind of externally variable to us. We don't know, we can't guarantee that if we need something tomorrow, it'll appear. So we might say, right, we need to make sure we have stock of that. The fabric kit, pre-cut pillow fabric, we might choose this because we've only got one fabric cutting machine. So therefore, we've got the critical operation protection criterion. So it's sort of measuring it against these points on the right all the time. What's the, do any of these qualify? Is it a good place to break up my my product? And finally, we've got the finished goods pillow item. So we might have a low customer tolerance on sales. We might make to order, or we might want to have a really good stock because our customers don't want to wait a few days. They want to order and know that that's going to come tomorrow. So the yellow inventory symbols kind of highlight our decoupling points. So say we've done that. Just turn off my pointer. We then calculate our decoupled lead time. So what we're looking to do is minimize the cumulative lead time from point of order, knowing about our requirement to deliver to actually shipping it. So in this point, we've got the polyol is going to take us 15 days. The foam billet is 2 days. Foam inserts a day, and the pillow manufacturer itself is 3 days. So if we start with nothing and order all that independently, we're going to have a 21-day lead time, which is pretty long to make a pillow. So when we've introduced our decoupling points, what we're saying is we're going to kind of guarantee or manage better the availability of the stock of those items. So if we've decoupled there, we know that we're going to have these things in stock. We're not going to have to make them. So actually our lead time is 5 days now because we're going to make the thread. That's 2 days. And the actual construction of the final pillow is 3 days. So if we make sure that these decoupling points, we have available stock at all times, enough to satisfy our demand, then we know that we can reduce our lead time from 21 days, sorry, to 5 days. And that's kind of the generic, why would I do it? That there's lots of complexity and configuration for you to actually realize it. But this engine and this awareness is now built into the planning optimization service. So really, you're looking to reduce your stock. It's kind of a lean stocking approach and improve your lead time to customers and generally improve the customer experience whilst reducing your stocking costs. Another example would be if you're retail. So most retailers actually stock finished products. In fact, probably all do. So bombs aren't an issue. But you can still use DDMRP by setting strategic inventory positioning and buffer levels based on storing at your distribution network. So for example, with this distribution center, I've got a few stores there, and I may decide that the transfer time to move the products between these centers is too much for my customer tolerance time. So maybe it's going to take me 3 days to get stock out to these stores. My customers expect it immediately. They expect to walk in. So I know that I'm going to have to maintain stock there. So it's a different way of viewing your stock. It's kind of demand driven. It's pulling stock into those areas rather than kind of maintaining safety stock kind of approach. So each store would have a different buffer level based on its lead times, demand patterns, all that kind of thing. I should have built this up. So there's some other planning improvements which I wanted to call out. I do encourage you to go and have a good look at the release plan itself. There's a PDF available and it's all summarized for you. But some things that have been added, so finite material scheduling. To ensure your production orders or work orders, depending on how you call them, can be completed during the time slot. It's important to know that you actually have both the resource capacity and all the required materials. So this functionality checks that, and it respects these dependencies on availability of materials. So if there's not enough components available, you can't actually schedule a work order. So it stops you kind of getting halfway through a process and finding you can't complete. Also, considering sales quotation. So historically, demand only considered completed sales orders. Now we can add sales quotations if we choose to. Along with that, process manufacturing has been included. So accurate material requirements by creating planned batch orders with formulas, component requirements based on formula measurements and the rules with them, and covering demand with supply that originates from batch orders that has co-products and byproducts, which you don't get in discrete manufacturing. There's a little dashboard which is available so you can see your supply risk. And along with that supply risk, particularly during the COVID pandemic, we need more resilience in our supply chain and diversify our supply network. So that sourcing from multiple vendors allows you to do some automatic vendor selection in your purchase orders, your automatically created purchase orders with predefined split ratios. So you may say, for example, I've got 2 vendors that will supply me that component or that product, and I wish to split them up 70-30. So 70% will come from vendor A, 30% from vendor B. And finally, the batch disposition codes now are available in planning optimization. So you can apply a disposition code to each batch. Businesses can control whether relevant inventory is available for reservation. So you can reserve all of us. You can basically group up batches to be available for certain processes, for certain certain customers, etc. So with the addition of this capability, the batch disposition codes will also be honored by planning optimization, which they were not before. And just some general supply chain. Inventory visibility. This is a service which is external to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, but is a microservice which is solely dedicated to knowing what inventory you've got, what's reserved, what's allocated to what. So you can now allocate and reserve WMS, advanced WMS items, which was a problem before. And you can also track soft reserved quantities in allocation. So if, for example, if I have 100 units of a given product and I've allocated 50 of those to my e-commerce channels and 50 to my brick and mortar stores, for example, as those soft reservations come through from the website, I can now track and see where their soft reserved quantities are in allocation. So if I'm doing a promotional event, new product launches, that kind of thing, I can work out where my allocations are. Maybe I need to make an immediate reallocation, follow up with some replenishment decisions. And so this enables that. So obtaining the physical consumption data from ERP used to be, well, it can take a long time due to data sync latency. So this can lead to oversell, overconsumptions. So the ability to track the actual booked quantities by demand in real time is enabled by this feature. And this is the soft reservations in quantities. Make to supply automation. This is a great big feature I didn't have time to go into today. I encourage if make to order is interesting for you. There's a great big page we can link to you. There's a lot of configuration and a lot of options in there for you, so you can get your make to order supply automation enabled. Along with that, make finished goods physically available before you actually post they're finished. This just basically allows you to improve the velocity of your production. And there are quite a lot of warehouse mobile app improvements. So I won't go too detailed into all of them, but multi-level detours, if you're executing a warehouse process and you find you have to go and do other things before you can complete your current process, it allows you to drop down a few levels into other processes and then return back to what you're doing. So it's really good for efficiency. And also the packing shipments has been added to the warehouse mobile app. So all of these are intending to keep your business running smoothly and keep your workers doing what they need to be doing without frustrating them, giving them bad experiences, and yeah, generally not helping them do their jobs. So a couple more features just to pull out. The main one I'm interested in mentioning to you is if you're using commerce, especially if you're using Storefront, Dynamics 365 Commerce's website, there's now a chat in commerce with omnichannel for customer service availability. So it does those things, adds a chat widget to the e-commerce site. But particularly interesting is the customer context can be passed to omnichannel for customer service from the web chat on your site. And then the commerce headquarters is available as an application tab on omnichannel for customer service, which allows your customer service agents to directly interact with commerce headquarters and commerce call center to do things like inquire about orders, manage returns, add new orders, add items to orders without having to jump between screens and log into a new application. Shilen will show you a little bit about omnichannel for customer services later on, and he'll point out where that session tab appears just so you can get some context on that. B2B is finally there. It was delayed a few times, but B2B e-commerce is available, and there's quite a few general about point of sale and generally fraud, how you can improve your transaction acceptance, basically increasing acceptance rates. I will pass over to Shilen now. I've talked quite a lot. Any details, if anyone wants any more details about some of the features that we've mentioned there, just mention at the end and we can send you as much information as you need. But with that said, I will pass over to Shilen.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Chris. So hello, everyone. So I'm Shilen Kimani. I am the customer engagement specialist here at HSO. I've been with HSO for 3.5 years, and my background has predominantly been in the CRM space. Now, what I'll be walking you through now is really all the great stuff that's coming out in the customer engagement platform. So CE for those who have got them installed or looking for a CE solution or CRM solution. Here's some of the flavors of the new capabilities out. First of all, I wanted to touch on is the marketing module. Now, there's two features that really jumped out to me in this Rave release. The first one is around the use of AI and being able to generate content based upon key information that you want to get. So as a marketer, you've got a type of email that you want to generate. You've got mind block, you want to brainstorm. Well, the use of the AI capability will allow you to enter in key information and suggestions of the type of messaging that you want to convey in your emails. You can then add that into the content ideas area within the email editor. And off the back of that, Dynamics will use its machine learning model to then output an email for you to be able to then use as part of your marketing campaigns, as well as a starting point as well. So you can tweak any of the outputs that the AI model has generated for you. Not only that, it will also start to recommend, say, personalization content as well. So if in historical emails you've seen a lot of traction in some areas of personalization, then the AI model will know that this is an area which is getting most successful, and it will factor that in towards your emails as an output. Another area in marketing, and not just only marketing, I guess across the CE platform, is what we're seeing is Microsoft enhancing and adding in more and more of these out-the-box reports and dashboards using embedded BI. And with marketing, it's no different. So Microsoft are releasing a report to essentially track and improve the impact and understand the impact your marketing material has across the different journeys. So what the dashboard will be able to show you all the different marketing efforts that you're putting into your journeys, and how people are interacting with these assets, the channels that people are interacting with, and defining the key milestones across the buyer's journey to define what was actually the most successful point and what was the factors for that. Let's take an example. In a B2B scenario, it may be that a lead qualification or even an opportunity creation is the factor. The insights will be able to flag it to you and identify what was the key moment in that process. Likewise, within a B2C scenario or an e-commerce perspective, whether someone's made a purchase or someone signed up to a loyalty program, the insights will be able to then identify, and that way you can start to really identify what those key touch points are and be able to focus more of your marketing time and effort into those areas. The next area I wanted to touch upon is Microsoft D365 sales. So in the modern world, we're now living in a digital age, and we're communicating with customers through different channels, whether it's in person, phone, email. Now, within the new Rave release, SMS has now been introduced as a new channel of communication with your customers. This way, within your D365 sales environment, you can, on the right-hand side, have a pane where you can have SMS messages being sent out to the contact that you're engaging with, whether it's on an email or directly to the contact. The SMS capability will also allow you to provide templated responses or even automated responses as well to those contacts. And as they respond, we'll be able to see automatically within the feed that whole communication thread. In addition to the SMS capability, what we've also seen in some of the announcements from Microsoft is a new application called Microsoft Sales Viva. Now, Microsoft Sales Viva is really designed to empower the sales users with actionable AI-powered insights. So what does that mean? It essentially means that it's taking your productivity tools, such as your Outlook, your Excel, your Words, etc., as well as your Microsoft Teams, and it's infusing it much tighter and closer into your CRM platform. So Dynamics 365 sales as an example. And what it will do is start to flag up information for you across all of these different applications, whether it's a user within Outlook, the Microsoft Sales Viva tool will be able to flag up all the CRM information in Dynamics into your Outlook. So you've got contextual information right within your collaborative tools and your productivity tools, as well as being able to perform actions as well. So it's not presenting information to you, but it's also recommending intelligent actions. For instance, being able to create a contact directly from Outlook, or even activities, whether you're in Excel and you've taken an export of your opportunities list, being able to see dynamically how that changes and the sentiment of those opportunities all through Excel, and not having to make any amendments in one application and doing the same in the other. So it's really connecting both of them together. And when I mentioned Microsoft Teams, we're also starting to see a much more deeper integration into Microsoft Teams with Dynamics Sales, whether it's being able to share Dynamics records directly within a Teams channel or a specific person. We're able to now effectively collaborate across the organization with different users within the functionality here, as well as being able to create activities directly from Microsoft Teams as well. So as we set up appointments and activities with our prospects, with our customers in sales, they can be Teams appointments. And as we go into the appointment itself and the Teams meeting, directly within there, we'll also be able to see the activity or the record that this is in relation to in Dynamics 365, and be able to add on notes or any takeaway actions and all that sort of great stuff, all within the Teams channel, and rather than having to do any admin work off the back of that conversation or off the back of that meeting. Customer service. So within the customer service, we're seeing a much tighter integration into Microsoft Teams. So we've got chat capability directly within customer service. So if an agent is working on a ticket, they can raise a Teams chat directly within the customer service module, have a conversation with peers, whether it's a supervisor, other people from different departments. All of the different conversations can be recorded and tracked against the case record that they're dealing with. And then there's further omni-channel enhancement. So Chris mentioned the tighter integration into the tighter connectivity into the commerce platform, and you mentioned that there's commerce headquarters embedded as part of the customer service experience. And from an agent's perspective, they'll just have another tab in their experience here. So as they were dealing with a customer, they'll be able to click into the headquarters tab, and they'll have all of the headquarters capability right from that single session. In addition to that, we're now Dynamics will now be able to support other channels such as Apple Messages, Google Messages, as well as being able to leverage the voice capability that Microsoft recently released as well. So voice, for those who are not familiar, is Microsoft's own telephony solution. So it uses the same capability as what Microsoft Teams uses. So you're able to make those inbound, outbound calls with Dynamics, but also have all the great stuff like sentiment analysis and recording of conversations all captured within the product as well. In addition, you've got things like queue holding and callback options, as well as leaving voicemails for agents as well as part of that voice capability. And the last area I wanted to touch upon is field service. So within the field service, what there's a few features that have jumped out to me specifically. One is around the costing and being able to cap costs against work orders. So as people are going out fixing things, they may need to purchase additional materials. Against each work order, we can now define a limit, and based upon that limit, there may be approval processes that need to be enforced in order to exceed the limit as well. That way you can control your costs and how much you're spending on fixing or performing maintenance on assets. And then the last one was around being able to manage your work orders through trades. So if you're an organization that has multiple categories of work orders, whether it's a plumbing, roofing, electrical work, or fixing air conditioners as an example, you can define the work orders to these trades. So as these work orders are created, all of the associated records, such as the work order types and the equipment, or even the materials for that specific trade, will be specific to that work order. Will be specific to the work order as well. So it saves time for the end users having to manually create these and make sure that the right stuff is in there as well.
Thanks very much, Chris and Shilin. As you rightly say, it's only a snapshot of some of the highlights out of, well, what is a packed autumn release, really, with the 300, 400 page document. For more information and details, please feel free to contact your HSO account manager. And I think what I'd like to do is thank you very much for your attention and time today, and thanks also to Chris and Shilin.